Hello folks, my name is Jenna from Golden State Times. I'd like to welcome you to another live stream. This time we are at the State Department as the State Department is getting ready to update everyone on the situation regarding Russia and Ukraine. So if you haven't yet, checked out our website, goldenstatetimes.com. Again, that's www.goldenstatetimes.com. We're updating some stuff right now. The first thing in the news is Ukrainian army recaptures their airport. You heard it right, folks. This is the Ukrainian National Guard shared a picture of 3 soldiers holding their flag full of bullet holes and shrapnel. It says the caption of the photo reads, "Guardsmen with their flag torn into pieces after today's battle." It also wrote, "Congratulations to all of you and say that we will win." So it looks like they recaptured their airport close to Kiev. Also in the news, gunshots were heard at Kiev train station as people flee the area. There's actually a video. We're going to be uploading it on our website in just a few moments. And it says, as commuters attempted to board their trains in Kiev, gunshots were heard. People panicked and left the area. There were also reports of Russian soldiers in the area. So they're getting very, very close to Kiev, to the capital. So we have to see. We're going to keep you guys updated on what's going on with that. So in other news, the Ukrainian president spoke to European leaders last night. Now, this is very sad. So it says Ukrainian President Zelensky warns 2 European leaders, "This might be the last time you see me alive." It says the Ukrainian president told European leaders on Thursday afternoon in a video call that they were on that it might be the last time those leaders saw him alive as Russians move closer to the capital, to Kiev. So the president of Ukraine seemed as if that video was coming from inside a bunker. We're getting on that right now. We're trying to see any updates and see how the Ukrainian president is doing, or if he has been on any other videos since then. So stay tuned for that. So those are some of the updates that are going on right now. There's also updates stating that that Putin wants to expand more past Ukraine. So it says, this comes courtesy of CBS News, and it says Blinken says that Putin has his sights on countries beyond Ukraine. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said it is obvious Russian President Vladimir Putin has goals beyond Ukraine and may have other countries in his sights. So he told CBS Evening News when President Biden addressed the nation today, he said that Putin wants a new Soviet Union. Is there intelligence to suggest that President Putin will advance beyond Ukraine? And they said, you don't need intelligence to tell you, this is Blinken saying, you don't need intelligence to tell you that this is exactly what Putin wants. The top U.S. diplomat said he's made clear that he'd like to revamp or recombine the old Soviet empire. It says, short of that, he'd like to restart the sphere of influence around the neighboring countries that were once part of the Soviet bloc. And short of that, he'd like to make sure that all of these countries are somehow neutral. So who knows? Who knows if he's really starting to put out influence, I guess, to try to get all these countries to come back. So what, USSR 2.0? A new Soviet Union? Who knows if that's going to happen?
Hey, I'm so sorry for the delay. We're going to get started a little bit later than expected, probably about 2:30. So I apologize for that. Sorry.
After the president's done? Is that related
I
to
just
that?
got word to let you guys know that 2:30 is when we're going to.
They're also aware that the UN Security
Yep.
Council is at 3.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, sorry about that. Sorry it's such short notice.
All right, let's put Tone back up. I'm gonna put Tone back up.
You have a hard hat? Yeah.
Sorry about that, folks. These idiots keep on. Oh my God, this really gets me so frustrated. So these idiots want to postpone it for another half hour. It was set to begin right now at 11 a.m. That is Pacific time. 11:02 Eastern. Now it's set to begin at 11:30 a.m. here in California and 2:30 p.m. in Washington, D.C. I apologize for that that beeping. That was the microphone being pulled out, so sorry about that. We're just trying to see if there was a hot mic going on, but there isn't. We still have the footage, and we're still here at the State Department. So I guess in order for us to not shut down this live stream, because it will be useless, we'll just continue with the news. We're going to continue updating you guys on everything that is going on regarding the news. So how about let's do that while we await for these idiots to get their stuff, to get their act together. All right. So, like I was saying, according to Blinken, which is the Secretary of State, he's saying that Putin has his sights on other countries beyond the Ukraine. He wants to reunite the USSR once again. So let's see if that happens. All right, then. So let's see here. What else do we have in the news? All right. So in a few moments, Biden is going to nominate his Supreme Court pick. So Biden is said to nominate Ketanji Brown Jackson. Ketanji, what kind of name is that? Anyways, Ketanji Brown Jackson to be the first black woman to sit on the Supreme Court. Identity politics, that's all this is. It says Joe Biden has selected Ketanji Brown Jackson as his nominee to the Supreme Court. It says setting in motion a historic confirmation process for the first black woman to sit on the highest court in the nation. Biden will deliver remarks in just a few moments, which we actually are going to live stream. It's going to, cut in between this one and the other one, like always with these people, but we're going to be live streaming both. And he's going to nominate that person, Ketanji or whatever it is. It says that Jackson, 51, currently sits on the D.C. federal appellate courts and had been considered to be a frontrunner for the vacancy since Justice Stephen Breyer announced his retirement. She received and accepted Biden's offer in a call Thursday night. A source familiar with the decision told reporters, but was present for the D.C. court hearings Friday morning. So she's still doing her job, even though she has been nominated to be a Supreme Court nominee. It says that Biden met with Jackson for her Supreme Court interview earlier this month. A senior administration official said in a meeting that the White House managed to keep secret. It says for more than a year, Biden had familiarized himself with her work, reading many of her opinions and other writings along with those of other contenders. But the official said that Biden was also impressed by her life story, including the rise from the federal public defender office to federal appellate judge, and her upbringing as the daughter of two public school teachers and administrators. It says Biden sought a candidate with exceptional credentials, unimpeachable character, and unwavering dedication to the rule of law, according to the White House. From the beginning, Jackson was the leading contender, but the official said that the president gave considerable weight to other finalists, including Judge J. Michelle Childs of California and California Supreme Court Justice Leandra Kruger. It says the president reached his final decision this week, the official said, as extended the offer to her in a phone call. On Thursday evening, she accepted in the call, which lasted several minutes. It lasted several minutes because it was his bedtime. He couldn't be out too, he couldn't be on the phone for too long. The guy needs to be in bed by 7 p.m. The White House considered delaying the announcement given the Russian invasion of Ukraine, but believed it was crucial to get the second phase of the confirmation process moving, according to that official. In a statement, the White House cited Jackson's broad experience across the legal profession, pointing to her career as a federal appellate judge, a federal district court judge, and a member of the U.S. Sentencing Commission, an attorney in private practice, and as a federal public defender. The White House described Jackson as an exceptionally qualified and historic nominee, calling on the Senate to move forward with a fair and timely hearing. So that's going on with that, folks. So that is who Biden's Supreme Court pick is going to be. Her name is Ketanji Brown. So let's see what else. What else is in the news? Okay, so it looks like Trump's New York criminal probe has a new prosecutor after lawyers quit. This comes courtesy of GoldenStateTimes.com, so go and check it out. A new prosecutor has been chosen to lead a criminal probe into the former U.S. president. It says the Manhattan District Attorney's Office said on Friday, after the departure of two top lawyers, threw the investigation's future into question. Susan Hoffinger will now lead the probe into Trump and his practices and family business, the Trump Organization, according to Danielle Filson, a spokeswoman for Alvin Bragg, the Manhattan District Attorney. So Trump said that he thought this was going to go away, but it's not going to go away. It's definitely not going to go away. So as you guys know, those two lawyers, they quit because they thought that whatever information they had to that point was pretty much like the case was useless. So they both exited, and now they're going to revamp it, restart it, and they're going to move forward going after Trump. And the reason why they're going after Trump regarding this criminal probe is because they believe that Trump inflated the prices of his properties in order to get better deals, better mortgages, stuff like that. So they believe that he inflated the numbers of the value of his properties. So let's see. What else do we have on here? All right. So it says this also comes courtesy of GoldenStateTimes.com. It says House panel widens investigation into Trump's handling of documents. Now, if you guys remember, the archives department at the White House went over to Mar-a-Lago, took like 15, boxes full of information and White House documents that Trump took to Mar-a-Lago, which he shouldn't have done that. Whether he believed it was his or not, it did not matter. Like, he knew that they were going to make a big deal out of everything, yet he still took those documents. That's very, very stupid of Trump to do. But he did it anyways, and now here we are. And it says, a House committee on Friday expanded its investigation into former Trump's destruction and removal of White House documents, demanding more information about classified material found at Trump's property in Florida, Mar-a-Lago, and reports that aides had discovered documents in a White House toilet during his time in office. Now, the whole toilet thing, they're getting it from a New York Times reporter's book. There's a book coming out, I think it's in October. And in that book, there's a piece that came out. I don't know if she leaked it or, she was the one that put it out. I have no idea. But in that part, it stated that the bathrooms at the White House were always clogged, and whenever throwing them in the toilet and flushing them. Now, if it was Trump, or if it was one of his aides or someone that worked for him, who knows? Or even if the whole story is fabricated, who knows? But this House committee is now looking into it. They're investigating to see if it is true that Trump was ripping up papers and flushing them down the toilet at the White House, or the fact that he took classified information from the White House to his Mar-a-Lago estate. Now, that's going to get even bigger compared to, all of these things are going to be happening at the exact same time. Trump being sued in New York, Trump being sued by like 20 states for not paying his bills, Trump being sued by a bunch of women saying that he did whatever to them, Trump being sued by the House committee on January 6th, Trump being sued by this new committee about him taking classified information back to his Mar-a-Lago estate. So Trump has a lot of stuff on his plate right now, and it's all going to be, it's all going to be bad. Like I said, at some point, the dam's going to break. Something's going to go through, and Trump's going to get in trouble. But it's just a matter of what and when. There's so many lawsuits going on at the exact same time. They're just overwhelming the guy. And like I said, the dam is going to break. But just who knows where, who knows what, under what conditions, or for what reason, It could be anything, to be honest with you. All right, so let's see. What else do we have on here? Let me get this situated here. All right. So January 6th panel questions Donald Trump's fiance, Kimberly Guilfoyle. It says Kimberly Guilfoyle spoke at the January 6th rally that preceded the attack on the Capitol, as you guys remember. It says the House Select Committee investigating the January 6th Capitol attack on Friday interviewed Kimberly Guilfoyle, the fiancée of Donald Trump Jr. and a GOP operative and fundraiser, behind closed doors. So she already spoke to the January 6th committee. Now, Trump didn't want anybody speaking to the January 6th committee, but now it looks like Kimberly Guilfoyle did speak to the committee. And Ivanka Trump is in talks, and she is going to be talking to she's in going back and forth with them, but she is going to be talking to the January 6th committee. Now, I don't know if that is with Trump's blessing or not. Trump hasn't really said anything about it. But the last thing that he did say regarding the January 6th committee is that it was a witch hunt and that it was a nothing burger and all these other words that he was using. And who knows if he's happy that Kimberly Guilfoyle already spoke, that his son, one of his sons already spoke to the January 6th committee, and now his daughter is going to be speaking to the January 6th committee. So it says that, let's see, it says the House committee investigating the January 6th Capitol attack on Friday interviewed Kimberly Guilfoyle, the fiancée of Donald Trump Jr., a GOP operative and fundraiser. Guilfoyle spoke at the January 6th rally outside of the White House that preceded the attack on the Capitol, and also allegedly bragged about her fundraising for the rally, according to texts reviewed and reported by ProPublica last year. Guilfoyle also worked as a fundraiser for the Trump 2020 campaign. An attorney for Guilfoyle, Joe Tacopina, accused committee members of leaking news of her appearance before the panel for political advantage. Political advantage, they're calling it. That's not true. They're just mad that she spoke to them because Trump is going to find out. And Trump is going to get pissed. I'm 100% sure that Trump is going to get very angry with this, that she went to speak to that committee. So let's see what happens with that. Let's see if little Don is going to end up having to get a new girlfriend after this. Let's move on to the next news. All right, let's see here. Uh, Russia. Russia will limit access to Facebook. This is very interesting stuff. Russia will access limit to Facebook and other platforms. Give me 1 second here. All right. So it says Russia will limit access to Facebook and other major platforms for dissent. It says the Russian government said that it will partially limit access to Facebook for restricting some pro-Kremlin news media accounts, a move that could make it harder for Russians to share their anger over their country's invasion of Ukraine. So as you guys probably remember, yesterday we reported that that there was a lot of protests going on in Moscow and other places of Russia regarding the invasion of Ukraine. A lot of Russians are not happy with it, and rightly so. You know, a lot of people don't want their country to go to war, especially now that we're getting over COVID and stuff like that. A lot of Russians do not want to go to war, and they're expressing their anger through protest in Moscow and other big cities around Russia. It says the Russian telecommunications regulator said Facebook was involved in the violation of fundamental human rights and freedoms because they had limited access to 4 Russian media accounts, including that of state-run news agency RIA Novosti and of Defense Ministry television channel Zvezda. I hope I said that right. Starting Friday, and it says that these measures are being taken to partially limit Facebook's access. And not only that, I don't know if you guys saw yesterday, RT, Russia Today, their website got shut down by Anonymous, which is a hacker group. So Anonymous came and shut down not only RT, but a bunch of other accounts, including their social media accounts. That happened yesterday. I don't know if RT is up now, but it definitely got shut down yesterday. Russian authorities ordered us to stop the independent fact-checking and labeling of content posting on Facebook by 4 Russian state-owned media regulators, according to Nick Clegg, president of global affairs at Meta, which is Facebook parent company. So that's what Russia wanted. Russia wanted to make sure that Facebook didn't get involved and that they allowed all of their propaganda to go through. Facebook said no, and now Facebook is getting banned in Russia. Let's see, what else do we have on here? Like I said, Anonymous, which is a hacker group, is waging war, cyber war, against Russia because of their invasion of Ukraine. They're not happy about that, according to the social media accounts of the group Anonymous. It says a hacking group Anonymous, or the hacking group Anonymous, is fighting the Russian government in cyberspace and is taking credit for knocking down the website RT, the Russian-controlled news network, as the Russian military attacked Ukraine. So the Anonymous group on Twitter said Anonymous was responsible for knocking off RT and shared news on Friday that the Russian military of defense website was also down. The Russian state agency, the Russian state-owned energy, 1,000 followers. So they believe that there is that many followers. Who knows how many active hackers are still around in Anonymous. Anonymous came out during the Occupy Wall Street phase. I don't know if you guys remember that, Occupy Wall Street. A lot of Anonymous started around that time, but Anonymous has been around for a very long time. The hacking group, I mean. But it became mainstream during the Occupy Wall Street era, pretty much. All right, what else do we have in the news here? We're still awaiting the State Department press briefing. As you guys can see, we're still live. We're ready to go, but we're just waiting for them. All right, folks. So let's see what else do we have in. Oh, okay. So this is very interesting stuff. Oh, this comes courtesy of GoldenStateTimes.com. And it says the CDC will loosen their indoor mask guidelines very soon. Pretty much at the end of the month. That's when they're going to loosen those mask guidelines for indoor, which will open up a lot more than what has already been opened up to this point. It says the CDC will soon loosen indoor mask guidelines, according to officials. The Center of Disease Control and Prevention is expected to loosen its guideline for when and where Americans should wear masks to prevent the spread of coronavirus, allowing most people to go without them in public indoor spaces, according to two federal officials familiar with the matter. The policy is expected to be announced on Friday afternoon, according to an administration official. Under the current guidelines, the agency recommends that anyone living in areas with substantial or high transmission areas of the coronavirus, as defined by case counts, should wear masks in public, indoors, like in gyms, movie theaters, and full capacity houses of worship. That means that people living in 95% of the counties in the U.S. should continue to wear their masks indoors. The country is recording an average of 76,000 new cases per day, roughly 66% drop from 2 weeks ago. So if you are going to the gym, or there's some churches out there that are forcing people to wear masks, once they revamp or revisit this guideline and they release a new one, most likely the next time you go to the gym or to a church or to another place where there's a lot of people, most likely you won't have to wear a mask, or they won't force you to wear a mask, pretty much. So that's good news regarding masks. Let's move on to the next news. Let's see here. All right, folks. So I believe the speech of Biden, that's where he's going to nominate the new Supreme Court justice, is going to be starting very soon. So let me get that ready to go too, as we're going to be streaming both of them at the exact same time. These people love doing things at the exact same time. So dumb. But that's the way that these crooked people are. So give me a second as I get that one ready to go. After that, there's going to be a White House press briefing with Jen. And after that, there's going to be a Department of Defense. Oh, it's already going on. Whoops. We're so busy over here that it's already going on. All right, so I guess we're going to upload that one. And these guys don't hurry up. Oh, man. So I guess what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over this briefing to this place. And put the White House press briefing on this one. Okay. Like I said, everything is done at the exact same time. Let's see, what else do we have on in the news? So there is a lot of stuff that is banning Russia from now. So this is not popular in the United States, but there's something called Eurovision. So it says Russia banned from competing at 2022 song contest at Eurovision. But if you guys probably know, also there was a soccer event that was set to take place in St. Petersburg, and that has already been banned too. So they're banning Russia from a lot of events. A lot of events are being canceled if they were either in Russia or Russia was involved. So a lot of lawmakers are now responding to Ketanji Brown Jackson's pick for SCOTUS. It says Democrat lawmakers flocked to Twitter on Friday to celebrate, obviously. What are the Republicans saying? Oh, it looks like the microphone is back on. All right, so it looks like the microphone is back on. Hopefully they'll start very soon. So it says that several Republicans commented on Jackson's nomination, with Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell saying, "I look forward to meeting with her in person and studying her record, legal views, and judiciary philosophy." It says McConnell's statement highlighted his vote against Jackson's nomination to the D.C. District Court last year. So he said in a statement, quote, "Since then, I understand that she has published a total of 2 opinions, both in the last few weeks, and that one of her previous rulings was just reversed by an anonymous panel of her present colleagues on the D.C. court. I also understand that Judge Jackson was the favorite choice of the far-left dark money groups that have spent years attacking the legitimacy and structure of the court itself." That's very interesting stuff. It says, while sharing his congratulations, the ranking member of the Senate Judiciary Committee, Rhino Chuck Grassley, noted that he would make his determination on Jackson's confirmation based on experience, qualifications, temperament, and judicial philosophy of that nominee. So he said justices have an unwavering commitment to the Constitution, including limitations on the powers of the courts. He said a justice must also be unfailing defender of the institution of the court, as Justice Breyer had been. Senator Lindsey Graham also voted in favor of Jackson last year as he pushed the president to nominate South Carolina federal judge J. Michelle Childs, accused Biden of letting the radical left win again with Jackson's nomination. So that is what he said. He wanted the other lady to be nominated. And I think as of right now, the only 2 was Lindsey Graham, Chuck Grassley, and Mitch McConnell, the only ones that talked about the nomination. We were actually going to stream it. we were going to stream it, but this got in the way, and then they postponed it or just pushed it back a little bit. And now the White House press briefing is set to begin very soon. Like I said, so much going on at the exact same time with these people. So let's see here. What else is in the news? So it says NATO leaders agreed to bolster Eastern forces after invasion. Now, NATO spoke earlier today. So at that meeting, they said U.S. President Joe Biden and his NATO counterparts agreed Friday to send thousands of troops backed by air and naval support to protect allies near Russia and Ukraine in response to Putin's decision to invade. It says, speaking after chairing a NATO summit, Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said that the 30 nation organization will send parts of the NATO response force and elements of a quickly deployable spearheaded unit to the alliance eastern flank. It's the first time the force had been used to defend NATO allies. The very first time. That's very interesting stuff. Most likely they're going to be talking about this at this State Department press briefing, so stay tuned for that. Let's see. Stoltenberg did not say how many troops will be sent or where they might go, but he did confirm that the move will involve land, sea, and air power. And they were talking about that earlier today. So it says that that group consists of up to 40,000 troops. 40,000 troops. So are they going to use all 40,000? Most likely they're not. Most likely the numbers are going to be between 500, 700, maybe 1,000. As you guys probably saw, Biden keeps sending more and more troops to Eastern Europe. Most of them being sent to Poland. He sent 5,000, then he sent 7,000, then he sent 10,000. So there's around 23,000 troops already in Eastern Europe as of right now. I don't know if anybody is reporting that, but there is. There's around 21,000, between 21 to 25,000 troops, American troops, already in Eastern Europe. And they're there to protect NATO allies only. As Biden had said, they're not going to go into Ukraine. They're not going to fight with Ukraine. They're not going to fight the Russians along with Ukraine. They just said in case the Russians ever go and attack any NATO ally, then they will respond. But until that happens, they're pretty much going to leave Ukraine to themselves to protect themselves against Russia. And I guess that's the reason why Zelensky said in a meeting with EU leaders last night that might be the last time they see him alive, is because they're pretty much leaving him on his own. That's just the way it is right now. They're pretty much leaving him on his own. Let's see here. In other news, okay, so we have some breaking news here. And it says, all right, so we have some breaking news here, and it says Russian forces enter Ukrainian capital. Russian forces on Friday have entered the Ukrainian capital of Kiev as U.S. intelligence officials warned that the city could fall within days. Now, they were saying that the capital of Ukraine, Kiev, was going to fall over the weekend. Most likely it's going to fall today. That's what it's looking at right now. That's how it's looking. And it says President Biden spoke with Ukrainian President Zelensky on Friday for 40 minutes, according to the White House. It was Biden's first engagement with Zelensky since the conversation overnight Wednesday as Russia launched a massive attack against Ukraine. It says Russian forces are moving forward to Ukraine's capital city of Kiev, are meeting more resistance than they expected, according to a senior defense official. So that official said, quote, I can't give you the exact geographic location of where they are, but they are not moving on Kiev as fast as they believed and they anticipated. So here we go. Here is the reporters coming back inside, as probably the Supreme Court nomination speech is already done with Biden, most likely. They're starting to come in now.
wires that was on her. Kind of hard.
Problem with the London one is also they want to do 5 years. They want to do basically they say that to come to the US you have to do kind of A levels, passing hard course, so you have to do another year before you get in, and then you're not assured of getting in. So, I was wondering how much this camp is. If you come from Europe, you don't, but from the US or elsewhere, you do, and that's a hassle. That's, another year of money. I'll see. Trying to look for the solution. So that's the first year for this thing is £18,000. So that's $25,000. And then you have about 30,000 a year, I guess, for the cost. So that's probably that might be cheaper than New York, cheaper than parts of the people.
Oh, cheaper than part.
Yeah, but if we push that tuition down, it could do this thing.
Are you planning on staying?
Hey man, I didn't see you.
Right now, no plan for the winter.
Good afternoon. Hello. My apologies for the delay. We actually intended to start early today. We are now starting late. I report to higher authorities, as we all do. I'd like to start by saying this. The American people are standing with the people of Ukraine as they suffer an unjustified, unprovoked, and premeditated attack by Russia's military forces. It's a brutal attack. It's a brutal attack that is endangering the lives and livelihoods of millions of civilians. We will not falter in our resolute support for Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity. This is a dangerous moment for Europe and really for freedom-loving people everywhere. Putin's assault on Ukraine is an attack on the principles that undergird global peace, stability, and security the world over. But Putin didn't account for everything, and he didn't account for the bravery and resolve of the people of Ukraine. We commend the Ukrainian people for showing strength and determination in response to an unprovoked attack by the Kremlin. We have seen Ukrainian soldiers demonstrate incredible bravery in the first day of self-defense, shooting down Russian aircraft, firing at tanks, and holding many of the positions while under violent assault. The Kremlin continues to use disinformation, including false reports alleging, again falsely, the widespread surrender of Ukrainian troops. Moscow is resorting to outright lies in an effort to weaken the resolve of Ukraine's military and of its people. We are also witting of reports that the Russian Federation plans to threaten to kill the family members of Ukrainian soldiers if they do not surrender. These tactics are classic intimidation. They are synonymous with the Kremlin. They are unacceptable. This isn't the first time, of course, Putin has decided that his country can attack another country with impunity. Moscow's further invasion of Ukraine is part of a pattern of the Kremlin's of destructive behavior. The Russian Federation, of course, invaded Georgia in 2008. It continues to occupy territories within Georgia's borders, and for decades, it has stationed troops in Moldova without host government consent. Tomorrow, the United States will join Ukraine in solemnly marking the 8th anniversary of Russia's 2014 invasion and brutal occupation of Crimea, a flagrant disregard for international law, as well as Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity. The United States reaffirms, as we always have, Crimea is Ukraine. The Ukrainian people have known 30 years of independence, and while building their democracy, they have shown relentless and inspiring pursuit of liberty, of peace, of security, of human dignity, and they continue to show that they will not go back in time. As we approach the 7th anniversary of the brutal murder of Boris Nemtsov, we are reminded that many Russians disagree with Putin's brutal and imperialist tactics and policies. The citizens of Russia who are peacefully protesting, including in Putin's own hometown and in dozens of other cities across the Russian Federation, are rejecting his violence against the people of Ukraine. We deeply respect them. We respect their bravery. We respect their heroism. They are out in the streets demanding that Russia's government, their government, stop this unprovoked and unjustified war. We've seen leading Russian journalists denouncing Putin's war of choice. We have heard of Russia's mothers concerned about the reckless deployment of their sons to a needless war. These courageous people of conscience in Russia persist. They persist despite the Kremlin's reinvigorated crackdown. This, too, is classic from Putin's playbook. Whenever challenged by people, his own people, speaking truth and opposing views, his tactic is to silence them. The people of Russia, as we have said time and again, are not our enemy. We hold President Putin and his cronies responsible for this war, not them. We join you in saying no to war. Niet vnia. President Biden has said from the start of this crisis, if President Putin chooses to invade, the cost to Russia will be immediate and profound. To its financial system, to its economy, to its technological base, and to its strategic position and ambitions as well as its reputation in the world. And the world has now witnessed that Putin has made a choice. He rejected diplomacy, he has chosen war, and President Biden has announced our response. To be clear, this is not the outcome we wanted. This is not the outcome we sought to prevent. It's both a tragedy for the people of Ukraine and a choice Putin made that he has decided for the people of Russia. This is a choice that has been decided for them, not by them. Putin's war of choice has required that we follow through on imposing the massive consequences and severe costs, and that we ensure his flagrant violation of international law will be a strategic failure. We stand united with our NATO allies and partners in Europe and around the world in confronting the Russian government and holding President Putin and those around him to account.
Thanks, Ed. I just wanted, I think you might have misspoken. This is the outcome you sought to prevent, right?
This is the outcome that we
Right.
sought to prevent.
Can I ask you, this may be already kind of OBE, but there was this proposal, the Chinese and the Chinese proposal the Russians seem to have picked up on, at least for an hour or so, about talks between Russia and Ukraine happening in Minsk. I know the Secretary spoke to Foreign Minister Kuleba today. What's the U.S., what's your thinking about the efficacy of such talks?
Well, Matt, you've heard us say before that over the course of several weeks leading up to the events that we've seen recently in Ukraine, the assault on Ukraine, its sovereignty, its territorial integrity, and really its people, that Moscow engaged in a pretense of diplomacy. That was before the invasion started. Now we see Moscow suggesting that diplomacy take place at the barrel of a gun, or as Moscow's rockets, mortars, artillery target the Ukrainian people. This is not real diplomacy. Those are not the conditions for real diplomacy. We and our allies have called for a real diplomatic solution from day one. President Zelensky, for his part, has repeatedly reached out to President Putin, but his outstretched hand at every turn was met now by silence and now bombs. If President Putin is serious about diplomacy, he knows what he can do. He should immediately stop the bombing campaign against civilians, order the withdrawal of his forces from Ukraine, and indicate very clearly, unambiguously to the world that Moscow is prepared to de-escalate. We have not seen that yet.
So you don't think it's a good idea?
We have not seen any indication that Putin is prepared to de-escalate. We have not seen any indication that he is willing to create the conditions in which diplomacy can succeed.
Just to put a super fine point on it, it is not the question of it is not a question of the venue. If the same talks without some kind of significant change from the Russians, you don't think talks anywhere.
This is a question that is much more fundamental than the venue. This is a question of whether diplomacy can succeed under these conditions. We do not think it can.
Then just secondly and finally for me, Finland and Sweden were invited to participate in this NATO meeting in Brussels earlier today. And the Russians have, issued a warning, saying that if they were to join NATO, and I know that there isn't any current plan for them to do so, but if they were, that there would be repercussions, military and political repercussions for them. Now, I'm not going to ask you whether the U.S. would encourage or support Finland or Sweden to join NATO, but there are conditions that have to be satisfied. For aspirants have to satisfy certain conditions to become members. Do Finland and Sweden currently, as they are now, meet those conditions for membership?
That is a question, Matt, for NATO, but there is a more fundamental question that your question actually gets at. And that is really what is at stake in this conflict. We have made the point before that Ukraine is a valued partner of the United States. Its people are partners of the American people. But this, in some ways, in many ways, is bigger than a territorial conflict between Russia and Ukraine. It is bigger because these are about the foundational principles that for 70 years now, since the end, over the course of 2 world wars and since the end of the Cold War, principles that have undergirded and really fueled unprecedented levels of stability, of prosperity, of security the world over, in Europe, Indo-Pacific, and everywhere in between. That is what Putin is threatening. In addition to the territorial integrity of Ukraine, the people of Ukraine, the government of Ukraine, what Putin is threatening is this rules-based international order. And one of the central precepts of that rules-based international order is the foundational truth that every country should be free to determine its own policies, its own domestic policy, its own foreign policies, its partnerships, its alliances, its associations, its aspirations. That is what Putin has sought to trample on in Ukraine. It is what, if we are to listen to at least this bluster, we may be led to believe he wants to trample on beyond Ukraine.
I get that, but that's not, my question is about Finland and Sweden. It's not about what Putin's policies are. You know, Ukraine has made it very clear that it wants to, or the current government of Ukraine has made it very clear that it wants to join NATO, and NATO has said, no, you're not ready yet. And what my question is if, and I know you're not going to want to answer a hypothetical, but if you're going to say no, do Finland and Sweden meet the criteria for NATO membership?
So first,
should they apply tomorrow? Would they have to, would they have to do, are they democratic enough?
So
do they uphold human rights?
So let me make 3 points. It is up to Finland and Sweden to determine for themselves if they wish to join NATO or any other alliance. It is our firm position and a firm position of the NATO alliance that NATO's door remains open to all eligible aspirants. And 3, ultimately, if a country does aspire for NATO membership, that's a decision for NATO, not for any other country.
I just want to know, would the United States support? You don't support Ukraine's membership in NATO right now.
Matt, you yourself have just said that neither Finland nor Sweden have indicated that they aspire to join NATO.
So that's why I tried to couch the question whether they would currently meet the criteria to become
I am
members.
going to let Finland and Sweden speak for themselves. Yes, Vivian.
Thanks, Ned. The EU has moved to impose sanctions on Vladimir Putin and Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov today. The president said obviously it was under consideration yesterday. There are reports that the U.S. will announce sanctions on Putin today. Can you tell us if that is the case?
As you heard from the president yesterday, all options are on the table. All options means all. All means all. We are looking closely at additional options that may apply appropriate pressure to the Russian Federation, to President Putin, to those around him. But any additional measures would join a litany of steps that, together with our EU allies, with Australia, with Canada, with Great Britain, with New Zealand, and other countries, we announced yesterday that constitute the strongest, most consequential set of sanctions and other economic measures ever imposed. And the fact that they are responsive to this brazen, brutal, unprovoked aggression on the part of Russia against Ukraine speaks to their strength and why that strength was and is necessary. So any additional measures would complement the fact that we announced yesterday that now all 10 of Russia's largest bank, which hold 80% of the assets in Russia's banking sector, are now subject to these measures. The export controls that we have the Department of Commerce, to be specific, imposed yesterday now block the import of some 50% of the strategic imports that Moscow would need for its strategic positioning, its strategic ambitions. The fact that the Russian government is now cut off in terms of its sovereign debt from Western financing. The fact that elites around President Putin are now sanctioned and subject to those attendant restrictions. Any additional measures, and again, we have said that if President Putin continues to escalate, we will do the same, but any additional measures would join that long litany of steps that already constitute the strongest, the most decisive response that the United States, and together with our allies and partners, have ever mounted. Humar.
So I have a couple of follow-ups on both of those issues, but before, please indulge me. Foreign Policy magazine first reported this about locally employed staff working in Ukraine and how they're seeking U.S. help. So what is the plan for them? How many people are we talking about? And what is your assessment? Do you not think you have an obligation to these people?
Humaira, the Secretary and others from here have been in regular touch with the Embassy Kyiv community, and that, of course, includes our locally employed staff. You've traveled with us. You know the value that the Secretary, that the team around him attach to our locally employed staff. They are at the heart of our embassy operations around the world. Quite simply, our embassies, our posts around the world could not function without our locally employed staff. On February 24th, a couple days ago, the Locally Employed Staff Committee sent us an email following Russia's unprovoked attack against Kyiv. We are exploring all legal options available to us that would enable us to support them at what clearly is a very difficult time for our locally employed staff. We've already taken some important steps. We've implemented paid administrative leave for all staff unable to work or telework, regardless of their location. Whether our local staff are working, whether they're teleworking, whether they are unable to work, let me be clear, they are being paid. Whether they are in Ukraine or outside of Ukraine, they are being paid. We have established a dedicated communications channel for all of our locally employed staff to contact us with their questions, with their concerns, so that we can be responsive directly to them. And we've provided the option of salary advances to support those locally employed staff who need an extra amount of assistance at what is clearly a very difficult time. So these relationships are deeply meaningful to us. They're deeply important to us. Again, our operations could not continue without our locally employed staff.
How many people are we talking about?
Now, I'm not in a position to offer that.
100?
All of them are being paid. All of them have these options available to them.
Okay.
Sure.
Unless you want to go to something else, Samara.
Yeah, I was just going to move on.
Can I just do one quick question on that
Sure.
first? Okay. One thing that they asked for specifically in this letter was assistance relocating out of the country. The Biden administration has been talking about this potential assault for weeks, now. So why isn't there already a way to help these local employed staff get out of the country if they want to? And do you plan on doing that?
Well, we are exploring all options that are legally available to us and that are logistically available to us at this time. As you know, we have, for over the course of weeks now, been issuing public communications directed in the first instance at the American citizen community in Kyiv, those who otherwise would have traveled to Ukraine, urging individuals not to travel to Ukraine, and more recently urging Americans located in Ukraine to depart Ukraine. We have, of course, provided guidance to our locally engaged staff, locally employed staff, who had come to us seeking guidance, seeking direction. So I can't speak to specific cases. I can't speak to specific decisions or choices that may have been made, but we are here to support them in every conceivable way that we can.
And is there any reason to believe they'd be specifically subject to Russian aggression?
I'm sorry?
Is there any reason to believe that these locally employed staff would be specifically subject to Russian aggressions?
I have not seen any indication that they would be targeted for their role, but we have seen every indication that this is intended to be on the part of the Russian Federation not only an assault on Ukraine's territorial integrity, not only an assault on its government, but also an assault on the Ukrainian people. So we are deeply concerned about the intentions, the motivations of the Russian Federation. It's why we are seeking to bring this unprovoked, needless war to an end as quickly as we can. Humera.
Just on this, do you know, were there any local staff who accompanied the people who went to Lviv and were working in Lviv and that, who have since now been relocated basically to Poland and who would have gone and are now temporarily at least living in Poland?
It was a core embassy team, Matt. That
just Americans, or were there local staff too?
It was a core embassy team. I'm not in a position to offer if there were any locally employed staff with them. Humera.
Just to close the loop on sanctions, and then I'll move on to UN very briefly. So the assessments out there about how long it would take Russian forces to overrun Kiev is mentioned like in days. And yet the president and others in this government said yesterday sanctions would be more impactful in time. Is it fair to say then in the immediate term, U.S. is basically unable to stop Putin?
I don't think you heard anyone say that. What you have heard us say is that, well, let me back up. Over the course of months now, we have been ringing the alarm bell as we had information available to us as early as late last year that Vladimir Putin had these intentions. We started to see his forces mobilize around that time. You remember in November of 2021 when we first started to speak about this publicly. Beyond our public messaging, we engaged in robust private diplomacy behind closed doors to ensure that our allies and partners around the world knew what we knew so that we could operate in tandem with one another. When it comes to the sanctions that you mentioned, these were coordinated with allies and partners around the world. Part of what gives them the bite, the heft that they have, is that these were not just measures that were introduced by the United States, but also by the European Union.
It doesn't matter how many countries introduce that. It's a matter of time. And we're talking about days, and President openly said that they don't have the days.
But you will look, if you see what has transpired in the Russian marketplace over the course not only of recent days, but of recent weeks. The threat of these massive consequences have pushed the ruble to its lowest levels in years, pushed the Russian stock market, pushed down investor sentiment, and have made clear that these measures have tremendous bite. And we saw that yesterday when these measures were introduced. So what is true is that these measures are designed to garner strength, to garner momentum over time. But with their immediate introduction yesterday, on top of the measures that we imposed on Monday in response to President Putin's recognition of these so-called republics in eastern Ukraine, you have seen that there has been an immediate effect. There has been an immediate bite.
My final one is on UN. The vote is delayed for an hour. Do you know why?
I do not. You would need to
Are you
ask the UN.
confident you've got UAE and India to vote yes?
We are confident that the Russian Federation will be and will be shown to be isolated on the world stage. We are confident that our partners, that our allies around the world will stand in very clear, very stark opposition to this aggression, to this assault on Ukraine's territorial integrity, to its independence, to its sovereignty. We have every expectation that message will emanate loud and clear from this UN session.
All your partners, including India and UAE.
We have every expectation that message will be loud and clear to the Russian Federation, unambiguous to President Putin. Yes.
Can I follow up on something that you said when you were speaking with Matt? You said if you were to listen to the blunder of President Putin, you might believe he was willing to go beyond Ukraine. Do you have reason to believe that that is the case?
President Putin knows, because we have stated very clearly that our commitment to NATO's Article 5, an attack on one is an attack on all, is as vibrant, is as sacrosanct as it was at NATO's founding some 7 decades ago. You heard the president say again yesterday that we will fight for every inch of NATO territory. That is a message that we have made very clear in public. It is a message that we have conveyed very clearly in private. I have no doubt that message has reached President Putin.
And one separate question. I want to do a follow-up.
And then I'll hand it right back to you. But is there anything specific to indicate? The NATO Secretary General said today that there are indications that the Kremlin's objectives spanned beyond Ukraine. Is there anything to suggest from the U.S.'s perspective that they do?
Well, what we have seen from President Putin, not only in recent days, but in recent years, is his desire to go back to an era that has long since passed, an era in which spheres of influence are acceptable, an era in which large countries can bully small countries, an era in which might equals right. That is an era that should have ended, certainly with the fall of the Berlin Wall, certainly with the end of the Cold War. But of course, President Putin has other desires, other aspirations. It is our task to reinforce the rules that have, again, governed the international community over the course of some 70 years, but certainly in more recent years since the end of the Cold War. Abigail.
Can you give us any update on your efforts to help Americans who are still in Ukraine? I know you are always hesitant to give exact numbers, but do you have any further indication of how many Americans have crossed over the border into Poland, for instance?
So, as you've heard us say, we don't have precise figures in any country around the world of the number of Americans who are present in a foreign country at any given time. And you know those reasons well. We don't track Americans. We don't require them to register. We don't require them to unregister when they leave a country. In the case of Ukraine, however, we did have an estimate, and we do have an estimate dated from October of last year of Americans resident in Ukraine. At the time, October of 2021, there were 6,600 Americans resident in Ukraine by our estimation. And that estimation was based on data from our Ukrainian partners. It was based on data that was available to us as well, including data from local organizations. That same month, October of 2021, is this very same month that we started warning Americans not to travel to Ukraine. It was those warnings were later superseded by clear and consistent encouragement to Americans to leave the country, and most recently, warnings that Americans should leave the country. So since October of 2021, we have seen a sweeping shift in the advice and guidance we have provided to Americans who either sought to travel to Ukraine or Americans who might have been resident in Ukraine. So while we don't have a firm number of Americans who are there, we have good reason to believe, and I think all of you have good reason to conclude, that the number of Americans in Ukraine now is far lower than 6,600. What we have been doing over the course of weeks now is communicating with Americans who are located in Ukraine, asking them to be in touch with us, providing us their contact information so that we in turn can provide them specific, tailored guidance about what they should do to depart the country. We have done so in the context of commercial air travel when that was available, and now more recently we provided specific, consistent guidance on how Americans can travel overland to leave the country, including offering them specific advice as to which border crossings to go to so that they can travel from Ukraine into Poland with ease. We've conducted diplomacy with our Polish allies to make sure that Americans need not provide any sort of advance notice when they seek to travel from Ukraine into Poland. We've set up a welcome center on the Polish side of the border with representatives of the State Department there to offer them any advice, any forms, any guidance they may need to complete their onward travel. So we've been in regular, consistent touch with Americans who are in Ukraine and Americans who have made that travel into Poland. Yes, sir.
Ned, if I may, I'd like to follow on sanctions. So you mentioned those additional measures means additional sanctions, but what might be the trigger? What might trigger them? So what else are you waiting from Moscow? Moscow is bombing Kyiv and other Ukrainian cities. I have the moral right to tell about this. I'm not speculating because my family spent this night in the shelter. So what else might happen? And just to push administration to apply the additional sanctions. And secondly, if I may, there are a lot of talks in Ukraine about the possibility of some kind of talks with the Russians. President Zelensky told about this in his statement that maybe America and those conversations. So what's your message to Ukraine? Do you think that it's necessary right now, or it's the wrong way? Thank you.
Thank you. So we do believe that diplomacy is the only responsible way to address this. That was our belief prior to the start of the Russian invasion. It is our belief now that the Russian invasion and assault on Ukraine has begun. At the same time, we want to see diplomacy conducted in a context, in an environment in which it can succeed. Our concern had been, prior to the Russian invasion, that, again, Moscow was using the so-called pretense of diplomacy, pretending to take part in serious diplomatic discussions, having these staged, highly choreographed meetings of the National Security Council, where President Putin would instruct his lieutenants to engage in diplomacy, only as he continued to amass his forces. Now we see offers of diplomacy at the barrel of a gun. We see these offers as tanks continue to roll across the border, as your fellow countrymen, your fellow countrywomen remain subject to unimaginable levels of violence and brutality by the Russian Federation. We want to make clear to President Putin that diplomacy by the barrel of a gun, coercive diplomacy, is not something that we are going to take part in. It is not something that will bring an end to this conflict in a real, genuine, and sustainable way. We do want to see diplomacy succeed. That is why we are doing everything we can through our public messaging, but in some ways, much more importantly, through the measures we have introduced over the past couple days, coercive measures that are designed to contour President Putin's next moves, to put pressure on his economy, on his financial system, on those around him, and on President Putin himself, so that we see de-escalation, we see diminution of violence, we see withdrawal of forces. We have not seen any of those things just yet, but these measures were just instituted, and it is our sincere desire to see this going forward so that we can work diplomatically to bring an end to this senseless, unprovoked violence. In terms of sanctions, as we've said, we have instituted the most biting, the most crippling, the most devastating set of sanctions together with our allies and partners that the world has ever seen. And we have additional measures that if we do not see de-escalation, if we do not see a diminution in violence, that we are prepared to enact, again, together with our allies and partners. Yes?
Following up on diplomacy, there was a memo sent around today to State Department employees calling for the cancellation of all government-to-government contacts with Russia unless it was a major national security interest topic, and those were listed. I'm just wondering what the goal of that approach is, what you guys think that does.
The goal of...
Cutting off most of the contacts unless it's of a high national security interest topic.
So, again, Russia's actions, it's needless, unprovoked, unnecessary, brutal campaign against Ukraine has fundamentally changed the relationship that Moscow has not only with the United States, but with countries around the world. The flavor, the look, the feel of our relationship it was last week or even a few days ago. At the same time, we...
All right, folks, so the White House press briefing is starting. We're going to be switching over. This live stream is going to go down, and then another one's going to come back up. So stay tuned. The White House press briefing is starting in just a few moments. We're going to be switching over. This one is pretty much done. They are just saying the exact same thing over and over again. All right, folks, so we'll go in.